You know, when we think about what changes history, we usually picture bullets and battles, right? But that's not the whole story. Sometimes the real pivot points, the moments that change everything, are found in something much quieter. They're found in files, in audit reports, and in the tough questions that rise from the ashes of a tragedy.
So let's go back to 2025. There's this massive explosion near Delhi's Red Fort. It's all over the news. But here's the thing. This isn't really a story about the blast itself. The real story, the one that should really grab your attention, is about who was behind it. Because this is the story of those who were doctors. Yeah, the very people we trust with our lives. The profession that is literally synonymous with healing. It just doesn't make sense, does it? A doctor? A terrorist? How on earth does someone who takes an oath to save lives end up taking them? Let's try and unpack how that sacred line between healer and destroyer got so unbelievably blurred. Okay, so let's zoom in on the main figure here, a man named Umar and Muzammil. And this guy is a total paradox. On one side, he's the golden boy, the academic superstar who absolutely crushed the state medical exams. But on the other side, he's a secret operative, a radicalized agent. Two completely different people, it seems, living in one body. And if you look at his timeline, it's just wild. It's like his life was running on these two parallel tracks. Back in 2010, he's this brilliant kid, gets a top rank, and walks into the government medical college in Srinagar. But while he's spending the next 7 years learning how to save lives, something else is happening. He's being slowly drawn into this radical ideology, right there, inside the college walls. It gets so deep that by 2020, he's smart enough to top another major exam. But he never even takes the job. His path had already been chosen. By 2021, he and his crew pack up and move to Haryana. A whole new chapter was about to begin. You see, this kind of radicalization, it doesn't just happen overnight. It's not like flipping a switch. It's more like a slow drip poison. It takes the right environment, and it definitely takes the right people to administer that poison. So who were they? Who were the catalysts in this story? And this is the really chilling part. This wasn't happening in some dark corner of the internet or a secret hideout. It was happening right inside a government medical college. You had a paramedic, Irfan Ahmed, who was basically a talent scout for terror groups. Then there's Nisar Hassan, a professor, using his authority to brainwash students. And they were smart about it. They used encrypted apps and propaganda videos, and their targets, so strategic. They went after the educated ones, doctors, engineers, people who fly completely under the radar, people you would never, ever suspect. So the group is formed, the ideology is set, but they needed a new base of operations, a place to really plan things out, away from the constant watch in Kashmir, and they found the perfect spots in Haryana. They set up shop at Al Falah University. Now, on paper, it's just a private university, but in reality, investigators later called it a regulatory gray zone, and that's putting it mildly. The place was so corrupt and so poorly watched, it wasn't just a problem, it was the absolute perfect sanctuary for a terror plot. And I mean, when you look at the university's record, it's just staggering. This wasn't a few bad apples. The whole place was rotten to the core. The guy who founded it, jailed for a massive chit fund scam. The university's money, a mess of shell companies and laundered cash. They were even faking their credentials to get government funds and not reporting money they got from overseas for years. Seriously, this place was basically a criminal enterprise before the terror cell even showed up. So you've got this perfect storm. A radicalized group of professionals inside a corrupt university. And it's here that the plan, the real terrifying plan, starts to come together. They called it Operation D6. And this wasn't some half-baked idea. This was a sophisticated, meticulously planned operation. We're talking about key members flying to Turkey for training on how to build car bombs and fly drones. They went out and bought 1,600 kilograms of fertilizer from local shops. That's a core bomb ingredient. And get this, to stay off the grid, they funded it themselves, pulling 26 locks. They were even trying to recruit suicide bombers, setting up a women's wing. And the endgame? A massive, coordinated attack on 6 cities, with 32 car bombs, all planned for December 6th. What's maybe the most disturbing part is how they hid all this in plain sight. They literally weaponized the language of medicine. Weapons were medicine stock. The target location, the operation theater. When the bomb materials were ready, the message was, Biryani is ready. A suicide bomber was a heart specialist. It's just bone-chilling, a completely secret language that no one would ever question. Okay, so you have this incredibly complex, multi-year plot with international connections and secret codes. How in the world did it all come crashing down? You're not going to believe this. It all started with one single, simple piece of paper.
That's right. This whole massive operation, the foreign training, the secret codes, the network of doctors, it all started to unravel because of a simple paper poster. A standard propaganda poster that one sharp-eyed police officer happened to spot in Srinagar. That's it. That was the tiny thread that would pull everything apart. And once that thread was pulled, the whole thing unraveled at lightning speed. Look at this. October 17th, the SSP spots the poster and starts asking questions. The very next day, they arrest the recruiter, Irfan, and he spills the beans about the Alpha Law plot. By the end of the month, police raid the university. A week later, another doctor is arrested, and he tells them where the weapons are hidden. And finally, on November 10th, with his entire network crumbling around him, a desperate Umar launches that lone wolf attack near the Red Fort, killing 15 people, but thankfully stopping the much, much larger plot. So, for a couple of weeks, this story was absolutely massive. The attack, the investigation, the shocking truth about doctors being involved, it was all anyone could talk about. And then, poof, it just vanished. So why did a story this big just fade away? Well, because it was deeply, deeply uncomfortable. This wasn't a straightforward story about some enemy from across the border. This was a story from within. It was about a doctor, a university, a financial mess, and a total system failure. And honestly, it was just easier for everyone to change the channel than to really face what this story was telling us about ourselves. But even after the news cycle moved on, the questions, they just hang there, right? This whole thing forced us to ask some really tough questions. Like, does being educated automatically mean you're a rational, safe person? Clearly not. Are our private universities a potential national security risk if we don't watch them closely? Is our oversight on things like funding and curriculum actually strong enough? And maybe the biggest one, why aren't we talking more about mental health and ideological counseling on campus? Because what this whole tragedy really did was redefine the battlefield for the 21st century. It taught us that national security isn't just about soldiers and borders anymore. It's in the campus lecture hall, it's in the classroom, and it's buried deep inside financial audit files. And in the end, history just keeps teaching us the same lesson, doesn't it? Real security, the kind that lasts, it doesn't just come from having more weapons. It comes from awareness. Which brings us to the final crucial question. This whole story is really about that razor-thin line, the line where education, something we value so much, can actually meet radicalism, something we fear. What is that line? And more importantly, are we paying close enough attention to it?